Hi, everybody, and welcome to the interview series for the Nonfiction Authors Association. I'm Carla King, and today I'm talking with Allan Karl, and we're going to discuss why authors should start a podcast or video series, and better yet, how to start. Okay, and I'm so happy to have you with us today. This event will last only 30 minutes. We're respecting your time, and you can get a recording available to the authority and VIP members of the Nonfiction Authors Association. So go check that out. If you're new to us, our members get some good, juicy stuff like our author advisor email every single Friday, and that features curated media leads and also links to exclusive member content. Members can also participate in a free mastermind group we call the Author Brainstorm Exchange. And you also get access to our vibrant private community on Facebook. In addition, discounts are available for our year-round Nonfiction Book Awards program, our annual Nonfiction Writers Conference, and our book marketing and our book publishing master courses. Both of those have optional professional certification. And we can't forget discounts with our awesome partners, including Lulu, Find a Way Voices, Office Depot, Ingram Spark, and many others. So we'd love for you to join us. Just navigate your browser to nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. Okay, I'd love to introduce our guest, Allan Karl. His best-selling book, Forks, A Quest for Culture, Cuisine, and Connection, brings to life his 3-year motorcycle adventure in stories, photos, and food from each of the 35 countries he traveled. A dynamic and inspiring professional speaker, Allan has explored blogging, video storytelling, and live online events to share his own journeys, the stories from the people he meets along the way, and a wide variety of podcast guests. Before embarking on these adventures, he co-founded Wirestone. This is a national digital agency that Accenture acquired in 2017. He brought his knowledge from Wirestone to his career as an author and speaker, including brand positioning, customer research, marketing strategy, promotions, design, and technology enablement, all that stuff that we all need to know about. So you can find out more about Allan at allankarl.com, at worldwriter.com, and forksthebook.com. All these websites. Allan, hi, thanks. Welcome to the podcast.
Carla. Great. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited about today's event.
I'm so glad you're here because you have been such a role model for me in streaming and podcasting and just having conversations with people, in the most natural and casual way. And, you've done it ad hoc and, in a very unthreatening way. But why? I mean, why do you start a podcast? There are a ton of reasons. And I wondered, what is the why and how has this benefited your author and speaking career?
Well, I think for all speakers, authors, memoirists, especially nonfiction, we're in heart, we're storytellers, and our story doesn't just end with the book or the Kindle or the audio book. What we need to do, especially in this overly connected society, Carla, is we need to strengthen relationships with our readers. So for me, I've been blogging. I podcasted before people even knew really what the word was. I think my first podcast might have been in 2005 or 6. And the goal always was to create a further extension of the story I was already telling through my books, through my blog, and bringing a more intimate experience, letting people know more about you as an author, that you can, people want to connect. Now, if you have a string of books you're doing, your best customers, of course, are those customers that have already purchased from you. The old marketing adage I come out of that business is that, it cost, I don't know the exact multiple, but let's just say it's grandiose. It might cost you 20 times the marketing effort to get a new customer than it does to retain and keep a new one. So I think podcasting, live streaming is a excellent tool to continue to strengthen that bond, that relationship, and make it tighter with you as an author, so you can certainly sell past books and the new books that are coming forward. And remember, everyone you touch on that podcast will also touch another 2 or 3 or 4 and many more people. So strengthening that relationship with them not only is between them, but it's between their network as well.
That's true. And also I was thinking about you as a speaker and your speaking career, and your book, is a big business card for your speaking career. It's a big color book. I don't know if you have it. You could hold it up to the screen. And you are paid for speaking. So yeah, there it is. It's gorgeous.
There it is. It's gorgeous. It's a coffee table book, a hardcover, lots of photos, recipes, really cool.
Forks. And one day we may talk about InDesign and how to do a color book, but today we're only got half an hour, so we're gonna narrow it down.
We're gonna have many of these. These will be a series, I think, in the end.
Okay, we can do that, exactly. So how has both your book and podcasting, maybe especially podcasting, helped your speaking career?
So it comes back to that same thing. You need something new. Once I've published this book, and believe me, this was an effort. This is a really big effort, because it's not just writing. Let's face it, as writers, we have a hard time just getting pen to paper or keys to the keyboard and finishing our, great American novel, our great memoir, or whatever we're doing, that business, the how-to leadership book that you're writing, is that once it's done, it's sitting there. It's a live thing, but by doing the podcast, I'm able to continue to be in front of people, to talk about what I do, how I do it, and why it's important to my audience, to the readers and potential new readers. So the podcast has been also a tool to connect with other authors. The other thing we can do is network. I had on one of my podcasts, Sasha Martin, who wrote a memoir, had an incredible, rough childhood, and what she did, her healing journey in this particular book. And she was an author that was a guest on my podcast. Her journey was very similar. This is why we connected. That she, for a period of 3 years, cooked a meal from every country in the world, and she blogged about it. And in the end, she wrote this memoir, which was the kind of the punctuation point, the exclamation point at the end of her journey of cooking these things, her healing journey. She was such a great guest. And she lives in Oklahoma City, ended up, marrying a guy that she found because she got a motorcycle, Carla. She actually got a motorcycle and met their husband that, she's been married many years, but she never ridden a motorcycle and just joined this club. So anyway, it's these kinds of things that you can do as an author, is network with other, other authors. You can network with people that inspire you. Once you have a podcast and you build a little audience, you'll find that you'll be able to create a new network, a new community of fellow authors and even fellow podcasters.
That is so true. And we can all co-promote each other. Like your friend has a book about travel and recipes, and your book is about travel and recipes. Now, nobody just buys one book about something they're interested in. They buy all the books. So it's a win-win for sure. Yeah. And do you also use it as sort of a demo reel for your speaking gigs?
Yeah, for the speaking gig, it's real interesting because you've seen a lot of keynote speakers. All of us have been in associations or companies, and there's a keynote speaker at the end of the keynote. Maybe he or she is sitting in the back signing and selling books, which of course I do. I also sometimes will negotiate a fee. So instead of actually paying the full fee for the speaking gig, I'll say buy 100 books, and we'll apply that. Just work a deal out with them so that
at full retail, please.
at full retail, of course. Yes, because this is a way to get your book in front of a lot of people at once. Now, the other thing I do, of course, let alone now, that's assuming once I've got the gig and I'm on the audience, I'm on front of the audience. When I'm trying to get the gig, our books are the greatest you said it, like a business card, a marketing tool. And particularly this one, because of its, when you hold it and you feel it, it's this tangible thing, and it's big. It's not just a normal, business size.
Yeah, well, yours is a real coffee table book. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. It's beautiful.
So it's really been great because I get somebody interested, me, and I'm not opposed to sending this to a potential meeting planner or somebody who's in charge of hiring speakers for events, for sure. And it's a great tool. And I think also letting your potential meeting planners or people that are hiring speakers that you have a book and you've got your podcast. And you have multiple places where you're sharing your message, you're telling your story, for sure.
And they want to look at that and see how you are on stage, and along with the reels and things that are on your website. But yeah, it gives them confidence to hire you for the big bucks, right?
Yes, that's the huge bucks. And speaking is a thing, and you bring that up. We didn't talk too much about it, but there's a whole, line you've got to go down to make sure you've got all your check marks, just as much as you're doing in a podcast. In a speaking thing, you need those reels, like you said. You need to have a keynote that's polished and has a clear, concise message, and it relates to the content that you're writing about overall, for sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we could do a whole session on that as well. So let's move to the tech tools. We're a little bit, it's intimidating for sure. So for somebody getting started, I think, you've tried a lot of them. Do you want to just name a few you've tried, or do you just want to go to what you ended up? Maybe we'll just go with what you ended up with, because you like, yeah.
So I think actually even before that, so a lot of authors that are listening to this right now or watching us, how do you even get to knowing what tools and what categories to choose? So I think the real quick thing is there's a few things that you have to get in order before you do that podcast. And one is I'll go into the basic tech stuff: an audio interface. You need a microphone like this. You need software, and you need a hosting platform. And then from there, you obviously need to then market and promote that. So at the very beginning, my audio interface is an M1 2-channel digital interface. It connects by USB into my computer. There's a lot of podcasters might use Focusrite, which is another brand. They make these Scarlett interfaces, and these are less than $100 that allow you to plug in a microphone. You certainly could use a direct USB microphone to go into that, but I found that audio quality and the overhead it puts on your computer is tough. So I use a Shure SM7B microphone. This is it's expensive for a starting out podcaster, so I wouldn't say go get this. But a Blue Yeti, for example, is a very common mic used by a lot of people. Rode, RODE, is a brand.
The Audio Technica.
The audio, there you go. So you can get a nice microphone for under $100 for sure, and but don't go too cheap because you don't want to sound tin. And then the software, it's pretty simple. There's two kinds of things. You need to edit the podcast, but you also need to capture it, like we're doing right here. You use Zoom, and a lot of people can use Zoom. There's a few other web-based services like Zencaster. What's the other one? Crowdcast, which is more of kind of a webinar platform, Riverside.fm, and Squadcast. Now, what I have chosen to use is StreamYard. And what I like about StreamYard, so this is the hosting platform. This is how it'll record so if you don't want to do this, let me back up a bit. We're recording this, and it will be aired and published on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that next week. But if you want to do something live, you can use these platforms as well. So StreamYard gives us the ability to stream your live podcast to Facebook and YouTube at the same time. And there's actually other options as well, but we'll just kind of stick to that. And then, of course, records it. So then you can post this as a replay on there. Now, I use it both ways. I do a live stream, Journey's webcast, and I'll use StreamYard for that. And I'll also have podcasts where the timing doesn't work with my guest. So I just record it like we're doing right now. And I don't know, it's $20 or $15 a month. And it has some advanced tools that I like to use, such as bringing in photographs, videos, and other kinds of content with my guests. So StreamYard is what I use and have chosen. Now, I've used to use a webinar platform, and the disadvantage of using StreamYard or Skype or Zoom is you're not really getting the analytics. You don't know how many people. I mean, you may see you get a hint after it's published, but you just really don't know how many people are coming onto your into your live stream or watching your listening to your podcast. And those analytics will help you find the content that is more interesting to your audience, for sure.
That could be different on Facebook and Zoom and YouTube. And I was talking to somebody about TikTok recently too.
TikTok, yeah. I mean, what you can do, let me bump in the TikTok, and also Instagram has this thing called Reels. You can use, see, TikTok and Reels are limited to 60 seconds, or I mean, maybe they're
going to 10 minutes, TikTok.
Are they going to 10?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. They're in beta for that. So
yeah. even if you stuck to the 60 second, let's say you record your podcast with video like this, take a clip out of it and use it to market it. So then you play the 60 seconds with some powerful message that you or your guest said, and bam, the guy to see this, to watch the full interview, boom, you link them back to the podcast platform that you're using, or to your website.
Now here at the Nonfiction Authors Association, we aren't fancy. I'm just opening Zoom and I'm clicking record, and we're going to show it to everybody later. I have done podcasts where I use a tool to mix in intro audio and maybe a little ad for something that I'm doing, some training or something, and then an exit audio, little peppy music and stuff.
An opener and a closer.
StreamYard, yeah, and I only did audio for that one, but now, video is getting easier and easier. Does StreamYard let you do that, or is there any what's called post-production to add all that stuff in?
You can do it both ways. So what I do on StreamYard is I've gone ahead and recorded an opening, and I've recorded a exit, a closing. And I upload them into StreamYard. And as I am starting the interview, I tell my guests, okay, I'm going to run this video. So I'm able to, using the web-based interface with StreamYard, to play that video and then go right into the interview. And then at the very end, I go, thank you again for tuning in to the Journeys webcast. See you next time. And then plays my closer, which is uploaded.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, good. Now, did it take you, is it hard to learn that for the average? So what if you had no experience in this?
Hey, look, if you can navigate Facebook and make a post on Facebook, you can use StreamYard. It's really fairly simple. It gives you a handful of options. Like when we're looking at your Zoom screen, there's just two of us. We're side by side. Okay, you can choose, and now you can do this live as you're doing it, to have one person dominate the screen and you in a little box. You've seen that kind of anything, or you can have both of you about the same size. So there's some options, and all they are is just clicks on there. And they have this thing called, I think, your assets, your branding assets. So you're able to upload logos. If you use like a PNG file that's got a transparent background, you can have that as an overlay on here. So you can really, more than you can do with Zoom or Skype or some of these other tools, you can brand it.
Yeah, so we're actually, maybe we could get a little Nonfiction Authors Association that's badge up here on the upper right of the screen. That would be fun.
And you can do lower thirds so that you can put the name of the person and the host. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we're doing that in I'm doing that in post-production. So I am getting a little fancier, but I'm doing that in Camtasia, and that's just a big, unwieldy process. And, and I love sometimes when I was on your podcast, I think you showed my book in there was a diagonal orange blank spot, and you showed my book and there was some writing on it. So we were over here and my book was here, and
Yep.
So you can start to use these things as you get to know the platform better.
As you get to go, and certainly you can do something as simple as because some of that you have to do while you're interviewing. It's
Right.
unless you've got a producer sitting over there with the
Yeah.
controls. So if you're uncomfortable with that, certainly using something like Camtasia, or I use Final Cut. You can use Premiere. There are a number of tools for the video.
iMovie. Yeah.
Yeah. iMovie.
Mhm.
If you're doing an audio only one, GarageBand is a great one. Then you can do those things like add a music bed
Mhm.
and these kinds of things
Mhm.
there. So these are great tools to play with. Find out what's most comfortable for you.
Right.
I'm pretty comfortable speaking and navigating the interface of StreamYard, and I'm no expert by any means in that, but I can get through it. And there are a ton of people, as we can always go to our favorite educational source, YouTube, and you could just search for StreamYard tips and tricks, and dozens of people will come up, and you can watch a few of those videos, as you can for Final Cut, Camtasia, and the other kinds of tools. And the other thing we haven't talked about is the hosting platform. So now we've got the software, we're capturing that, and we're assuming all these interviews that our authors are doing are remote, like we're doing right now. Now the whole game changes if you're going to do these live, but we're living in different times, and now people are much more comfortable with this remote format for such interviews. So, but there are a number of places such as Anchor FM and Libsyn is who I use. There are platforms that will get your podcast out to all of the places that people can listen to it, including Spotify, Last FM, Apple Podcasts, one of the big ones.
Google.
Google,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So that's something that does require a little bit of an investment. There are some platforms that may offer it for free, but they may inject their own ads at the beginning or the end of that. So you just have to figure out what you're comfortable with, and choose a set of tools that don't become a hindrance to what you'd want to do. You're authors. You want to tell the story, and you want to bring in other people to help them tell their stories. So don't let the tools interfere with what you do best. And that's
Right. And it's that keep it simple at first and then maybe start adding things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so when you sit down to do a podcast interview, let's say on StreamYard, you turn on your mic, you get what do you pull up? What is the process step by step?
Yeah. So the first process is finding a guest. That's number one. And one of the things is, if you everybody's got different times. A remote calendaring program is very handy. There's one that I use called Calendly. I think it's got a free version. So at least that you can kind of populate this calendar with the times that you're going to be available for the interview, and give that guest the option to choose the time they want to do it. It's just another little tool. So I will make sure I get the guest, schedule that. And by the way, there is another tool. We keep talking tools. There is a service. Once your podcast gets enough episodes out, you can sign up for Podmatch. There is it's a call it a networking platform for people who want to appear and be interviewed on your podcast, and they're all in different categories. So if you ever get stuck, like, who am I going to interview? This is a place you can find some really interesting people.
And as authors, even if we're not doing podcasts ourselves, we can go sign up to be interviewed.
Exactly. If you're an author, go sign up. There's a slight fee, but you can then be put in front of hundreds and thousands, I guess by now. I think they've got over thousands of podcasters that use the service to source guests. And once I do that, I make sure that I give them, I've set up a little a PDF file that's a real easy link that tells them how they're going to get into StreamYard. I make sure that they get the StreamYard link. And then what I do, I always, if I'm interviewing an author, I'm going to do my best. If I don't read the whole book, I'm going to read a lot of their book. I also do research, because you want to be knowledgeable. You want to have some depth to this conversation. So I will do the research about my guest, and I have my notes. I have a handful of potential questions, but I don't use that as it's, in concrete. I do that just as a, like an outline. If I get lost, I've got those questions, but I like to be organic and get my guest and me on a more deeper level in the terms of the conversation. So it kind of let it flow as opposed to just having a list of questions. That's my style. Now your authors can do what makes them again comfortable. But then once I get the author on there, I have to enable the recording on StreamYard. And once the recording's going, I usually will, I'm going to edit the recording a little bit at some point. So I try to make sure that my guest is comfortable. We'll do a little test, like a green room kind of thing. And then once I go live, not necessarily live, but we're recording, and I go at the guests. And I also have assets that I've set up. So if I've found their book, like I used your book to bring up, I'll bring up a graphic of their book. I may bring up a video that I found out of them. Maybe they have a video trailer for their book. So I might play that and get people to talk about it. So I've already got my assets. So there's a little bit of pre-production and planning for the interview. But once it's live, I've got an idea. I've got a potential list of questions. I've got some assets that I can share, especially nowadays, the podcasts are more video, Now I also will, use the audio only portion of that because obviously Apple Podcast at this point doesn't support video, does it? Right? I mean,
I don't think so.
Yeah. So where the video podcasts end up are on some of these other ones, particularly using YouTube as a source. Every author should have a YouTube channel as well. So that becomes another platform to put these video podcasts. Then
I've even seen the podcast audio only, just with a picture, through the whole.
It used to be YouTube might have, their algorithm would have, they kind of like turned the other way on that. You might not get a lot of pickups on that when it was just a static image, right, for the entire, and I've put some of mine up there, but now we can do this. You can, so what's cool about StreamYard is once it's all done, I can download the video file and then I can download only the audio. So I don't have to then go into the video and extract the audio. So I can download both versions of that. And be able to create and repurpose only the audio for those platforms that only support audio.
And then you schedule it for release, and you have the full podcast for release. And do you repurpose it? Do you put it? Wait, it's already on YouTube. Do you put it on Facebook as well?
I put a link to Facebook. I create a blog post for it because I still have subscribers. We all, for us that have blogs, I make and I embed the video.
In your blog post?
In the blog post, yes.
The YouTube video, because they make it really easy to put that in. Yeah.
And for my audio only podcast, because I still do some of those, I also will embed the Libsyn. I use Libsyn, Libsyn, as my hosting platform. I will embed the Libsyn audio player in that blog post as well. Yeah. And I will use Twitter to put links, and I'll use Twitter cards. I'll create a graphic. I love to use the Canva. If you are not familiar with Canva, this is a great tool, free tool. If you pay a little bit, and it's so compared to the Adobe products or something like this, you can create. There's so many templates. It's so easy, and you pay a little extra. You get the Pro. They even have video content, audio content that you can use in creating a marketing ad card or otherwise. Great tool, canva.com.
And that also helps you market it. Just create a video card and market it everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, we said, everywhere else. Okay, great.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, and to create your thumbnail, for YouTube, it's a great tool, as well as just a Twitter card, a graphic to put on there. Yeah.
Well, geez, we're running out of time.
No.
I was going to ask you, I know, if there are any other tips you'd like to share, but I think we've probably covered enough. Thanks for sharing all of those tools. I'm going to put it in the show notes so you can get it at the Nonfiction Authors Association.com events page. So finally, I'd love for you to tell our audience about your books and how to find you online, and if you offer any services to authors who want to start podcasts, anything you'd like, where to find you.
Yeah, so my book is called Forks: A Quest for Culture, Cuisine, and Connection. It's available on Amazon and at forksthebook.com. If you are who doesn't love to travel, who doesn't love food, who doesn't love just humanity, and this book brings all that together, as you said at the beginning. If you're having a tough time, you don't know, you're at a fork in the road. Do you want to do a podcast? Do you want to do a webcast? What are the tools? How do you get set up? I definitely offer coaching and consulting to help authors and speakers to set up podcasts, to go ahead and navigate through that maze. And certainly find me online at World Rider, like motorcycle rider, World Rider, hashtag World Rider, at Instagram, YouTube, all the usual platforms. You'll find me, World Rider. That's my brand, and be happy to help you if you want to contact me.
Great. Yeah, yes, I'm hired. You're hired. Thanks so much, Allan, for being our guest today. And thank you to our audience for joining us. We conduct these interviews every single Wednesday, so please check the schedule or sign up for our mailing list to get notifications about events. And you can do that at nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. See you next time.